Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, December 18th, 2017. I'd like to open the meeting by having the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Clerk, if you please lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, the first order of business that we have this evening, we're open right now in open session. We're actually going to go immediately into executive session. When we complete the executive session, we will come back in to open session at 7 p.m. So I'll entertain a motion for us to go into executive session for collective bargaining purposes.
Mr. Chair, move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, subsection 21A, Clause 3, to go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining with the town's unions. Since an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the board, and to convene an open session thereafter.
Second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. For this, we need a roll call vote. Ms. Napoli?
Aye.
Mr. Gerber? Aye. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Chair's in favor, so it's unanimous. So we are officially in executive session, so folks at home,
We'll be back.
we'll be back. 7 p.m.
Hey, George.
That's one of mine, isn't Pardon me? Yeah, I heard that. Got that here somewhere.
Oh, that cold air.
The door opens, it gets cold.
Yeah.
Alex, where are you off to?
It's a Ocean mainframe camp. I'm gonna be a web editor for a tech magazine.
Good luck.
How are you?
Good luck.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
because tech has a future and, you know, newspapers,
I've been told.
Okay, so welcome back. We're back in open session now. So on the agenda tonight, we have reading the mail. We've got an opportunity for public input. If you would like to be heard, I just ask that you stand, state your name, in your address. Any comments should be made through the chair. Just ask that they're respectful comments and pertinent to the issue. Well, if it's public input, it doesn't have to be necessarily to any particular issue. Then we'll have an opportunity for member updates. We will be filling a vacancy on the Cemetery Commission, so we'll be taking a vote on that. We've got some updates on the budget, some other personnel updates, as well as an update on the opioid outreach goal. At 8:10, we will get into the Cricket Lane parcel. We'll have some discussion and follow-up discussion to the Cricket Lane parcel. At 8:40, we have a town administrator, assistant town administrator update. We've got some good stuff going on that will be brought forward. Then we have an opportunity to approve our minutes from previous meetings. And I think that is all. Well, actually, no, we've got some renewals, license renewals.
license renewals too, yep.
Yeah, a number of license renewals for common vics and entertainment licenses and such. So, looks like we will be a couple of hours. Buckle up. All right, so, Mr. Bergman, if you could take us away with the mail?
Sure. Mr. Chair, a few items in the mail packet. One is that we received notice of award of a $50,000 grant for the master plan implementation. There's Michael. Master Plan Implementation Committee's project for comprehensive review of the zoning bylaw and to develop a master plan for Littleton Common. As you recall, that town meeting appropriated funds at special town meeting, and we had the opportunity to submit a grant to augment those projects, and it was fully funded. That we were one of, there were 37 communities that got grants. We were one of a handful that actually got the maximum amount of $50,000. So congratulations to the committee. And we've received notice of a municipal recycling recognition. We are part of the Central Mass Municipal Recycling Council, and they have given an award to our Highway Department for the town achieving a 30% waste reduction from our 2008 tonnage. And that was the point of time where we implemented the pay-as-you-throw system. And we have, according to the information from Chris, that we have a 47% reduction. The goal is 30%, and we've achieved 47% waste reduction, so.
Keep up the good work, Littleton.
received word that the Littleton Police Department is getting $1,247 for traffic enforcement equipment grant from Mass Executive Office of Public Safety, so congratulations to the LPD. And then we have a number of, we have some notices from National Grid regarding proposed increases to base distribution rate for gas services, and can call to your attention in particular that there's a series of public hearings that Mass DPU is holding, Mass Department of Public Utilities, and the one that's closest to us will be at Acton Town Hall on Monday, January 29th. And that's it for the mail packet.
Thank you very much. All right, so if anybody has any public input, this is your opportunity. Sir, in the back.
Yeah, George Sanders, 672 Great Road. This is a comment with regard to the planning board. We're down for the planning board, and they had a special permit hearing. And with that hearing, they need the majority of the board members there, so they had one person there which is pregnant, and she wasn't able to come. And then the other gentleman there, he was supposed to, I guess, be there, but nobody heard from him. So you had all these people come out here and, you know, for the hearing, the citizen in the town and also the people, Workers' Credit Union was here, and there was a few other people. They had two hearings that they weren't able to hold up. So I suggest that if you have boards that requires 80% of the mass majority of the members, they got a 5-member board, so that would have meant 80% of the people had to show up. Then maybe you ought to take boards like that and at least put 2 alternates there specific for that particular permit situation, so that you don't run into that problem and waste people's time out here with lawyers and everything else, and the people coming out here wasting their time because somebody don't bother to even call to tell that why they ain't gonna be there. So I know it's an unfortunate situation there, but I'm just trying to say, they're gonna have a meeting, I guess, on the 20th of December, because they really needed to get this in place. So my thing is, as a citizen, I think the town, if you have a requirement to have more than the normal for the quorum to be there, then we must provide some provision, because people do get ill and get sick.
Do you want to address that relative to the bylaw, or some?
Well,
We have really no purview over the planning board, right?
Yeah, part of the issue is, and I was gonna try to look it up online quickly, but because the planning board is elected, that I'm fairly certain that there's not a provision for an elected alternate member of the planning board, unlike the zoning board of appeals, which is appointed by the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen has the ability, under the statute, for ZBAs to appoint regular and alternate members. To my understanding, there is not a similar statute, and certainly not for elected planning board members. One, you know, tough enough to get people run for office as opposed to get them to run as the, you know, for the august title of alternate member of the planning board. Whether that can be done if the planning board were to be appointed, I'm not gonna open that. I'll let someone else open that
Put
one
on
up.
that more and more. Yeah, it is frustrating, Mr. Sanders, we definitely hear that. And there are situations, Mr. Glavy gave me a call on my way home this evening to say that he was unable to make it this evening and apologize for the late notice. But it's, we run into those situations, and we try to avoid them as much as possible, and I know that each of us have scheduled, you know, business trips and that kind of thing around the Board of Selectmen scheduled meetings, and it is unfortunate, and unfortunately, we don't have any leg to stand on when it comes. We can certainly have a conversation with them, but I know that the members that were there are aware of it and are addressing it amongst themselves. Sure.
can the town, ask the state about it, because it's a state provision that requires the board to have that for their special permit.
Chapter 40.
So if you run into situations, you know, maybe they're not aware. So maybe there may be, they can modify it or whatever, but I tell you that, you know, a lot of people is out here, and that isn't good when you have something that's important, and especially people that's coming in here to do business in the town here, and, you know, anything can happen, because I believe in Murphy law, but I think that if the state require you have that percentage of members there, then there ought to be some means that they allow you to have other people to fill in if you can't do it. I just think that the town needs to ask the state about that, since it's a state provision.
It's certainly something we can ask. But I married a Murphy, so I know about Murphy's Law. But the frequency of having these frustrating incidences is not terribly high, and I'm sure the state will look at that on a statewide basis as well. But we can certainly ask the question, and I'll take that on and get back to you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, folks, just, if I don't write it down, I won't do it. I haven't quite completely embraced the technology.
You get it.
I'm getting there. Is there anybody else who would like to be heard during this opportunity for public input?
I just have one question.
Sure.
Dave Locke, 2 Barron Way. During the discussion for Cricket Lane area, is that open discussion, or is it right now that people get to speak for them?
That's a separate agenda item altogether.
Right.
It's-
So, I mean, I'm
would
just
ask
meaning, they're not all here. They were planning to come at 8:10 for that meeting. Is it something that?
Oh, then we're doing it
they
now.
need to be here now? That's fine. If they need to be here, I'll call.
No,
them.
no, no, no.
No,
Okay,
no, it's an agenda item.
that's,
Appreciate it. All right. Anybody else? Okay, great. Anybody have any updates, any member updates like to share? I know you do.
No. No, mine's gonna be, scheduled at 7:30,
All right,
the
great.
opioid matter.
Excellent. Same.
I just want to thank this board and the Finance Committee for the work they did on Saturday, and everyone else that was involved from the town, all the different boards that showed up, that gave a full day on Saturday to work through our budgets. People should realize how hard certain groups are working to make sure that our financial status is working out, and I just want to congratulate everyone for that. Besides that, happy holidays to everybody.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I definitely echo that. I was gonna close with that.
Well, we should pass notes ahead of time.
Sorry. Can't do that. It's an open meeting law violation.
We used to slide things before.
That I got slapped. All right, so, let's move along then.
You want me to remind?
Yeah,
Oh, all right, okay.
all right, so as my portion of the member updates this evening, I'd like to just make a public thank you to Alex Silva, who is the, has been covering the town of Littleton for the Littleton Independent for
Just over 3 years.
just over 3 years, pretty much like my term. And just wanted to thank him for his professionalism and the work that he's done for the Independent. We will miss him and wish him all the best and good luck on your next chapter. Thank you very much, Alex. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you for reminding me, Anthony. I was also going to do that at the end. All right, so next up, we have fill a vacancy for the Cemetery Commission. So,
This is a bit of an unusual procedure in that normally filling a vacancy on an elected board is done, in our practice, has been done jointly by the board, the remaining members of that board, and the Board of Selectmen. The statute allows that if that other board gives notice to the selectmen within 30 days of the vacancy. In this case, we didn't get that notice. I know the town clerk tried diligently to get the notice. As it happens, we have one applicant. I'm not thinking that it's going to be, we'll see how difficult it is to make the decision. But ultimately, the statute says the Board of Selectmen fills the vacancy, and only if that other board gives you notice, then they can participate as well. And I see Andrew's here, and just to make sure that that the right thing happens, and so but it will just be the Board of Selectmen that will be making this appointment tonight. We advertised for 1 month per the board's policy, and we received one application by the deadline of last Wednesday at noon, and that's Carolyn Mueller, who was here tonight.
Do you mind just coming forward? You can either pull a chair up to the table, or if you're more comfortable just sitting in the front row, wherever you're comfortable. We have microphones all over the place.
Yeah, that's okay.
First of all, thank you for applying. Appreciate you stepping forward. And I guess just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested in being on the cemetery.
Sure, well, I grew up here in town, so I like to be involved and help out where I can, where my interests lie. Currently, I'm your appointee, one of your appointees to the Community Preservation Committee, and I'm also a longtime volunteer at the Historical Society. I have a great affinity for cemeteries, especially ours, and I feel very strongly that they should be respected and maintained and preserved, protected. I often look at things with a perspective of preservation, and I think, I was really pleased this past spring, the Historical Commission got CPA funding to do some conservation work at the old burying ground. And I think that the Cemetery Commission can be a little bit more of a partner, active partner in doing some of the work, conservation work, getting some funding. I'd like to see an assessment done at West Lawn, and I thought, well, that was something maybe the Cemetery Commission can do, but I think the Historical Commission is gonna roll that into their next funding application for the spring. As far as maintenance goes, I think one of the things that the Cemetery Commission can do is to lend support to the staff. Have always done a great job at keeping the cemeteries looking really nice, but we're expanding, and the limited resources that they have, the staff people. I know Saturday TC asked for some more equipment, some of the stuff I know is, held together with bubble gum and paper clips, so I think they can support kind of those things, and also I think he asked for some help, in the summertime during the peak season. And I think just, getting behind some of those budget items and helping, the staff. I know that they report to the highway people now, but I think still you can be kind of a sounding board for them. I know at one of the last meetings when he was putting the budget together, just kind of, asking the commission, does this sound right? Does this sound feasible? How should I ask for this? I think to continue to be that support and be a little more available to him. The rules and regulations too, I think, are something that should be reviewed every couple of years or so. What's posted on the website now has a date of May of 1999, and we're so aware now of date stamps on, public documents and websites and all. I think even if you don't change anything, it should reflect a more current date, and I think that's just something that should be done. And I know there are a few things that could probably be added to that, that have, kind of come up over the years that just haven't been integrated into those. I like the idea of the master plan. Again, I think was in the budget request this year. With the 15 acres that they just got, you don't want to all of a sudden have to start going. And I think it's great if you have a plan in place, you can make sure that the aesthetics of the cemetery stay, as beautiful as it is up there. You want to continue that. You don't want to have to do things haphazardly. So if you know how to plan where you're going to expand, I think that's a great idea. The columbarium that he had asked for too, cremations are kind of the wave of the future. But you want to make sure it looks good and make sure that it's up there. And I think just having additional people's input will only help that. And of course you have to balance all this because, the utilitarian reason why we have cemeteries is to bury our dead. And you want to make sure that the rising expenses we don't have to increase fees as much, you know, the burial fees, because it's a burden at a burdensome time, and I think you really want to, you know, make it as the less affordable housing you need, right? So you want to make sure that we keep those fees at a cap, rather than having to, you know, because we need all this money to start raising the fees. And I just, you know, I think that's part of my interest, and I'd be honored to help out with that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. It was very inclusive, comprehensive. Appreciate that. Members, does anybody have any questions for Carol?
I think you did a great job explaining what the
Right.
goals were and everything else.
Right, very
I don't know
thorough.
if I had the enough people I had to compete
Competition.
against.
And you're ready to run for the position when
Yes,
it's at
in
the
May,
election
right,
in
yeah.
May.
Yeah, I realize that
yeah.
too.
Okay.
You good? No, I'd entertain a motion.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 49, Section 11, to adopt Carol Mueller as to fill a vacancy of the Cemetery Commission expiring at the May 2018 annual town election.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
You do.
Diane will swear you in.
Yeah.
Yes,
you need
I'll
to
see
go.
you this week, it'll
Yeah.
be fine, thank you.
Good
Thank
deal.
you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
CTC.
Nice.
Great. Thank you, Andrew.
Good night.
Thanks, Andrew. All right.
And we're on to it.
Look at that, huh? All right, so item number 5, I know that Bonnie was,
Bonnie is
to
out
make it
sick.
this evening.
Yeah, Bonnie's out sick today. We put this agenda item on as an opportunity if anyone wanted to just debrief or just have any follow-up discussion from the day-long discussion, from the day-long review of the budgets. It's opportunity to do so. Bonnie will be giving the next iteration of the budget at our meeting on January 8th with both an operating and capital update.
Okay. Just something it's going to be a work in progress, I think, but we kind of put Cindy on the spot as our Vanna White to put up what we call the big rocks. So the big capital expenses, the big dollar items that were coming up. And I don't have that summary with me, but do you have them with you? Actually, you know what?
Actually, I think I do.
The chairman of the FinCom texted me a picture of it. So.
Because I
pardon me
wrote
for
them
this.
all down before I went up there.
Send it to me, I'll put it on the big screen.
Sorry, folks.
I went looking at the LCTV video and I didn't see
All right, I'm
it.
gonna send it over to you now,
See it.
please, okay? Send. See if that. So, on Saturday, what Joe was referencing during the member updates was, we had an opportunity, once a year, we get together and we do what we call a budget summit. And the Board of Selectmen, FinCom, and the town administrator, assistant town administrator, and and Bonnie from finance, we sit in and we kind of figure out where the budget's at. And it's kind of our first step. We look at a mission budget, we try to figure out what all of our expenses coming up so that we can really prepare going into May town meeting and kind of have all those, actually into March when we have to post the town meeting and the warrants and whatnot. So it's a day-long exercise, and a lot of work goes into it from all the departments come and sit before us, and they tell us what their budget is, level service, and what their wish list is, and how they could better operate, and give us a little bit of update of where they're at. So, not sure if we
Ticket
can.
items, is that big one?
I don't know if you
The
can
big
read
six-
that.
Oh, there it is.
So, some of the big rocks, as we call them, were, for the highway department, $250,000 to replace a 6-wheel dump truck with, it's gonna be, have all the bells and whistles on it that'll allow us to, take a piece of equipment out of service that's 30 some odd years old, and allow us to do a lot of work that we're currently contracting out, a lot of the paving work and things like that. The fire department has, their big rock, if you will, is approximately $1.2 million for a new ladder truck. The ladder truck that they currently have in service is getting to the point where it's costing us about $30,000 a year in repairs to keep it on the road.
It's 30 years old.
Serviceable, and that's 30 years old as well, right? The schools came forward with, asked for $135,000 for Chromebooks, and textbook resources, $100,000. Park and Rec has a $400,000 plan for the bathhouse to completely redo the bathhouse. That's been a work in progress for a few years. The new field design, that's based on the Gale, the report from Gale, if I recall
Right,
correctly.
that's correct.
Was that, no, I apologize, I wasn't at the meeting all the way through, but the new field, are they talking about anything specific, or just if they were to
If, it was just
develop
if.
a new field, whether it's
Yeah, it
Cooper
was not
property
site-
or
it
some
was
other
not site
Morgan or-
specific.
Wasn't taken into,
Okay, so $100,000 just to do that kind of
The non-
assessment and
right.
design? Okay. The smart sewer project, which we've been working on for a couple of years now, we put, it's kind of a placeholder that's
Placeholder
down
for
the
engineering for
road.
design.
Right.
So we're looking at $1 to $1.5 million for engineering design for that, which, that conversation will certainly be getting more active through the spring.
January 8th, we're going to have an update.
Correct.
Next
We'll have an
meeting.
update from Weston and Sampson on January 8th at our next Board of Selectmen meeting. The Cricket Lane parcel, there's some folks here tonight for that agenda item for 810. That would be a $1 million purchase, if we were to purchase, exercise our right of first refusal and purchase that property. Demo the old highway garage down on Whitcomb Ave. There's a building down, if you're heading away from the VFW, down Whitcomb Ave towards, I guess it's Harvard. On the left-hand side is the old DPW barn, and that would cost about $600,000 to demo that old garage. So, kind of seems a little steep to me.
Asbestos removal is
Yeah.
part of that.
Yeah.
Give me a mask, I'll do it for half that.
Great.
So those are the big rocks, just to kind of give you an update on where we're at with the budget summit. It was a lot more than just the big rocks. There was a lot of rocks that
There's a lot of rocks.
create the foundation for
Right.
what our budget's all about, so. I believe, I don't believe, I know it was on LCTV, and I'm sure you all watched it, from 9 AM until 4 PM.
It's on demand now.
But it is on demand, and you can watch it in snippets.
if you watched that,
I could watch the afternoon session when I got
Which is fantastic. It's must-see TV. All right. So that's my Reader's Digest version. Bonnie will do a much better job, I guarantee it, when she's feeling better. All right, so Building Commissioner, Department Staffing Plan. Roland, Shelley, if you could come forward, please, for item 5B. Welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Purpose of my being here is to request the Selectmen to approve Michelle Cobley as a local inspector, and also to approve a full-time administrative assistant to the building department. In 2015, we proposed to the Selectmen a succession plan whereby I would elevate Michelle through testing from where her position was as assistant zoning officer and pretty much my permit coordinator, elevate her into the position of local inspector. She's taken her classes, she's a contractor, licensed through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we're ready to take the next step. In order to do so, she has to be a local inspector appointed by the town, whereby then we can petition the state to accept the testing that she's going to have to take within the next 18 months. When she becomes a local inspector appointed by the town, she then can independently go out on her job sites alone and do independent inspections. Right now, she can't do that. We're looking for relief from my department because of the amount of work that's come across with, the Point, 15 Great Road, Distribution Way, FIVA. These all are pretty big projects, and they just seem to keep going on and on and on. Furthermore, some of these projects, some of these commercial projects require annual inspections after the project's completed. So my list of inspections now has doubled. Multiple family dwellings has doubled. Assembly areas have doubled. My liquor licenses, visiting the establishments that serve liquor, I have to inspect those every year along with the fire department. So our workload is doubled, and we're trying to relieve that, and we're trying to do it in-house. I'm very confident with Michelle. She's very capable, and I'm kind of excited to get her out on her own and see what she can do with the contractors. Now, the board supported this in 2015. It was warmly received by the board, and they asked us to move forward, and we did. And as I already mentioned, Michelle took the test for contractor. She's an unrestricted contractor, and she's taken her classes for local inspector, and we're just ready to move forward to get this thing done.
And you had voted, this board had voted back in July to support, the last time we were here, trying to advance this, was to, we had the board support Shelley's application to be able to take the exam as a local inspector and her conditional appointment as local inspector.
Correct.
So, so in order to carry this out, the piece that we're looking for is that the administrative duties of the department, which right now fall on Shelley, as well as the inspections piece, that we're looking to increase the staffing level of the department from 3.7 full-time equivalents to 4.3. And that's basically, right now, for administrative, we have a 15-hour week on-call person whose hours would instead go to a full-time position. So the incremental increase is, goes from 3.7 to 4.3 FTEs. The funding source for the inspections department, in addition to the operating budget, there is a revolving fund which receives the permit fees. And that would be the funding source for this incremental amount. Right now, if Roland needs to get help from inspectors from other towns to deal with the workload, they get paid out of the revolving fund. We're essentially looking to have this staffing increase be paid out of that same source. So it's neutral to the general fund, although it would be paid by the building permit fees that we're using as a funding source for additional inspection personnel now.
Are there any other uses for that revolving fund, or is it just for mutual aid?
Bonnie could answer that. It's not for mutual aid, it's to support the inspectors.
It can only be spent on that purpose. The revolving fund monies can only be spent on inspection services.
Right, so if you needed to hire the Groton inspector.
Which we do. I mean,
Right.
I've given him one contractor in town to follow.
Right. That's where those funds would come from.
Correct.
That's by mutual aid, that's what I meant, just
Yep.
getting backup from another inspector. And the impact, although it would be absorbed through the revolving fund, would be 15.6
That's correct.
incremental.
That would be
Impact.
incremental
Financial.
it would be $15,650.
That includes the part-time admin.
That would include, that would support the a total staffing level of the increase
6.6.
of somebody subtract 4.3 from 3.7.
So it eliminates the part-time staff and
Right.
changes to a full-time admin.
Would you expect a corresponding decrease in the need to hire out, Groton inspector to come in? So ultimately, using less of that money for those outside resources now
That's
that
correct.
you and
I
Shelley
plan
can
to
both go
phase
out
him
and do
out.
that?
I mean, he's going to retire anyway, so I don't have a choice.
But it's been the goal, not only for this department, but for, every town department that we can, is to promote from within, to provide professional development opportunities. And in the case of this department, we've had, the board has approved a succession plan a couple of years ago. We've been following that, and this is the next step now, where I hope we're within sight of Shelley being granted the license that you get once you pass the test, to allow her to do the local inspections, and for that, though, we would need to restructure in a way where Shelley, attaining that status as a local inspector, is spending her time as a local inspector, so that the administrative duties could be done by an administrative staff person who would get a lower rate of pay.
It's kind of interesting, I can see both sides of it, I guess. The state makes you get appointed by us first before you can go there, and I
Yeah,
guess,
it's backwards is what it is, but they won't approve her to take the test until she's appointed conditional inspector or local inspector, and then she's allowed to take the test.
so basically our appointment would be conditional upon her passing the test, I would assume.
Well, once you appoint her, her title is conditional inspector, but she has the full power to go out and do inspections. Again, I don't know why they do that, but I have all the confidence that she can do it.
Yeah,
It's sort of that, in order to send a police officer to send someone to the police academy, you have to appoint them as a police officer. And then they go to the academy, typically, and they have, but then upon successful completion of the academy, that they're able to actually carry out police powers.
all right. The only other point I would have is just that, as excited as you're going to be, Roland, to get Shelley out there and busting heads, I want to make sure,
That's not the terminology.
In the nicest
I
way.
mean, being sweet as honey, I would just beg that you allow her to train the incoming personnel as much as possible,
without
because she's got a
question.
level of expertise that,
There's no doubt that that's going to happen, because I can't do it.
all right. Any other questions from the board?
We really do 2,200 inspections a month, or a year.
Oh, that's probably low. It's getting to be.
Oh, yeah, I guess 2,300 this year.
I mean, you can take the number of permits and sort of average how many you do. A house is average 4, a wood stove is 1, commercial, unlimited. The point, we're up there every day. So it just varies, and you have some contractors that are good, so it's easy, and some contractors are not so good. We're out there all the time.
No questions, sorry.
I'm all set.
Okay.
This was very receptive with the finance committee on Saturday too, this whole plan.
Was what?
Was very receptive.
Yeah.
They're supportive of it? Okay.
And when you mentioned going out there and busting, it's, I mentioned this on Saturday also. I've worked with this department professionally, for 20, 30 years in a row, and I can say how professional they are and how they do handle things.
It's a good testament. All right, I'll entertain a motion if it seems like we're in consensus here.
Sure.
Move the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to the staffing vacancy review policy to approve the request of the building commissioner to increase staffing for the building, zoning, health departments from 3.70 to 4.33 FTEs, including full-time local inspector and full-time administrative assistant, for which the fiscal year 2018 impact is $15,649.45, will be funded by the building inspector revolving account.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, and all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Good luck, Shelley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
For your
much.
support.
Thank you.
Is she before us tonight?
I'm looking,
It's under $50, it's good.
Consumer of the services of the building. Satisfied customer.
I don't know why she gave them to Aunt Saldy.
I thought it was just for me. You guys want to share them?
All right, so next up, on our agenda, we've got Council on Aging Morrison Charitable Foundation donation.
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
The John and Eunice Morrison Charitable Foundation was gracious once again this year to the Council on Aging, donating $5,000. On December 11th, the COA board voted to accept that donation. They allocated it the same as last year, which was $2,500 would go to the TRED fund, and $2,500 would go for the transportation fund. We're asking the Board of Selectmen support the vote of the Council on Aging on December 11th for the same purpose.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any questions on this, guys? Just a big thank you to the Morrison Charitable Foundation. Can we just make sure that, if the thank you hasn't been sent out already, can we make sure that we send out a thank you to them for their continued support? of
Two
our,
very important funds.
Exactly. Get this in front of you. Chase, Cindy, you want to do it?
Sure. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A, as recommended by the Council on Aging, to receive an unsolicited gift of $5,000 from the John and Eunice Morrison Charitable Foundation, of which $2,500 shall be deposited in the Special Gift Fund for the Transportation Program of the Department of Elder and Human Services, and $2,500 shall be deposited in the fund established by town meeting's acceptance of Mass General Laws, Chapter 60, Section 3D, to aid the elderly and disabled taxation fund for the purpose of defraying the real estate taxes of elderly and disabled persons of low income.
Motion's been made.
Second.
And seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thanks again. Nice. So next up, we've got an update on one of the Board of Selectmen's goals, which is an opioid outreach. And our champions for this goal are Ms. Napoli and Mr. Gerbig.
So I just wanted to talk to the board. We did form a coalition, the Littleton Coalition Against Addiction. We had a meeting about a month or so ago. That group has been brought together with members from the Littleton High School Department, the first responders, our police and fire department, the Board of Selectmen, a member from an Advocates Recovery Center from Worcester, as well as Nicole Lawrenson from Elder and Human Services, who is our outreach coordinator, and Kelly Young from the Littleton Police Department, who is our communications officer and a trained peer recovery coach. So they have scheduled an event. We have a speaker coming on January 10th, and he's going to speak at both the Littleton High School to the students in the morning of January 10th, as well as we're going to have him speak that evening to the community at the Littleton High School auditorium. His name is Richie Farrell. He is a former boxer from the city of Lowell, and he's a recovered addict. And it's interesting because his story, his recovery began, he came to a meeting at a church in Littleton the night before he entered a recovery program. So he's kind of excited to come back to Littleton and talk about his story and his journey to recovery. As we know, this is really a serious and important issue in not just our community, but nationwide at this time. The student forum it's solely for the Littleton High School students. There will be some guest speakers there that are going to talk to the kids as well. The community forum is going to be more of an open event with Mr. Farrell speaking, but also members from our community are going to speak who have gone through this process and are recovered addicts. And we're going to have a question and answer session as well. There's a lot going on, especially at the high school level, that a lot of people don't know about, they're doing to combat this issue. And it'll be great, too. We're going to have, like I mentioned, Nicole Lawrenson from Elder and Human Services and Kelly Young from the Littleton Police Department will be there also. So I just wanted to provide an update on that. And I just wanted to talk to the board about just putting together a booklet that I made that were sent to you, just to get your input on that. I printed out hard copies, because I'd like to distribute this as well. I did also obtain a lot of free materials from the state website. Governor Baker is very proactive in disseminating information and providing funding for this issue. So I did also take advantage of some free handouts that I would like to put together with a package so that we can distribute it. And I did make up a little flyer about Kelly and Nicole that they typed up a summary of their experience and what they're here to do to help the community. So I just wanted to show this to the board. I'd like to get this information on the website, the new town website. And this is basically just all the information that mirrors what's in the booklet.
Yeah.
So I just didn't know if you had any questions, if you've had time to look at it, or,
There's, the tough part about, for anybody that's been through a family member suffering with substance abuse disorder, it can be very challenging. A lot of people are prideful, and they don't come forward, and they don't want to admit it, and they privately try to find resources. So for us to have a bunch of resources available to folks that are available either on the website, which is anonymous, people can go to the website and get this information pretty readily.
Right.
I'm sure they're going to be available at the high school, I'm sure at the police station, at the fire station,
Right.
within the town hall, probably, right down the hall where we kind of put a lot of our informational pamphlets and whatnot. It's just, it's become an epidemic. And,
Right.
that's kind of the word that the governor tends to use as well. And we made this one of our goals because we wanted to make sure that we were trying to get as far ahead of it as possible.
Right.
We have had some young adults in our community over the past year or so that have fallen victim. So we want to try to make sure that we can save as many as we can and hopefully stop them before they stop themselves and the addiction gets them. So appreciate all the time, effort, and doing all the digging that you've done to dig up all these resources and compile them for us. It's a lot of the stuff that I mentioned before. People don't see all that we do. They just see us up here for a couple hours every other Monday. But this is much appreciated. And I guess next step is as far as a process or what's our standard operating procedures for trying to get this type of content onto the website.
I'll have a follow-up meeting with our IT director, Nancy Glencross, and see the best mechanism to get this information out there.
okay.
Although you should also mention you have a Facebook,
Right, thank you, Anthony. We
Yeah.
do, we have a Facebook page now, the Littleton Coalition Against Addiction, where there's contact information there to reach Kelly or Nicole, basically as central points of contact, and all inquiries made through Kelly and Nicole, or any organization for that matter, is 100% confidential. It absolutely would not be shared beyond, their purview. So I just want people to know that it's not absolutely your personal business. It's not public knowledge, and we really just want people to realize that we're trying to get away from the stigma. It's really a health issue. No one wakes up and says, I want to be addicted. No one wants to be where they are, and we're just trying to help people really get back to who they're meant to be and provide these resources. So that'll be great if we can just keep
Yeah.
getting this information out there for everybody.
I'll certainly follow up, and if I may just mention too, with the new website, the upgraded website, we're also on social media. So we are utilizing Twitter and Facebook posts, and they've got the snowstorms and so forth. So if you can give us a follow on either one of those, it's a great way to get information. We're trying to be very active in posting. So that's also a great way to get more information.
Right.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks,
Yeah.
Cindy.
If I could just mention one thing.
Sure.
Something that Jason, Cindy put in our packet, it was an excerpt from the Richard Farrell gentleman that you're gonna have come. Reading through that, some of it's quite graphic, but it shows you where a young gentleman can come from being with two great parents working, and a great upbringing, how anyone can slip into this. And this is a small excerpt of what he's written, but it's certainly worth reading.
Tells a story, yeah, absolutely.
Right, and it's a common story, so.
Yes, it is. All right,
So,
thank you very much. Appreciate the updates. And not quite at 8:10. Mr. Locke, can you release the hounds? It's not quite 8:10. We're a little bit ahead of schedule here.
You could
Do we
do
wanna do
seven,
licensing?
yeah, 7B and 7C, I think you could do quickly.
All right, so we're gonna fast forward to item 7B, which is the Nagog Hill Orchard extension of the lease. That's the- So,
The current lease extension expires January 15th. Anthony was reporting that the agricultural working group is of the understanding that there's not the time to bid out, to put the thing out to bid. The vision had been to, we have a town meeting authorization to do an up to 20-year lease for the property, put out as a competitive bid with a bid spec that has not yet been developed. There's not the time to do that, and so what we've done now for, the original lease was for 10 years, and I think this might be the 7th or 8th extension, one-year extension, that we've granted to the current lessee, Nagog Fruiters, Inc., and it's, so it's recommended that we do one more.
And I would
One-year
add to that,
extension.
that it's the intention of the agricultural working group that this is the last one-year extension. They've actually already put together a draft lease, and as far as prioritization is concerned, we're looking first at getting the lease for Church Meadows squared away, and then once that gets square away, the lease and future plans associated with the orchard.
and it's their intention to bring it before us to,
Absolutely, yeah.
because those,
But in order to put something meaningful in front of the Board of Selectmen, it makes sense to extend the.
oh,
lease a
absolutely,
year.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Rather than being hasty. Okay, it's certainly something that we should be looking pretty seriously at, because Charles has been a good steward of that property, Mr. Auger, and he's not getting any younger. And we need to start looking at our options relative to the orchard property.
That's a big part of what the agricultural working group spent some time discussing a week and a half or two ago, is what does the succession plan for that look like? How do we do it in the way that is most beneficial for the town, for a leasee who's been a good leasee to the town, and ultimately take care of the property. So I think, plan on hearing more about that in the
Good.
coming months.
Yeah, certainly hope that, Anthony, you attended that meeting as well?
I did.
You could maybe just, it's an open invitation for them to come before us and,
Certainly, they
Give us
gather
some
all the
updates.
information, so
Yeah,
when we
okay.
have more, we'll definitely be coming forward.
yeah, there was a copy of the lease attached. The extension is there, the legalese, but I think we've all had an opportunity to take a look at that, so I'd entertain a motion to extend the lease.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to execute a further one-year extension from January 15, 2018 to January 15, 2019 of the June 22nd, 2000 lease agreement with Nagog Fruiters Incorporated for the Morrison Nagog Hill Orchard property on the same terms and conditions as prior lease extensions.
second,
Moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
I will say too, the agricultural working group has a draft lease that's.
Good. We have a number of licenses that need approvals. After reviewing them, are there any that anyone would say they want to put aside? I would entertain this kind of doing this as a slate, unless Mr. Bergman or Mr. Ansal, do you have any opposition to doing so?
No, we'd want to have the authorizing vote on record from the board, and the issuance of the license is always subject to inspecting the premises, so. And you need not read the list, it is contained for those who wish.
Right.
It's
Part of
really
the,
2 pages, single spaced.
So it's 36, 44, 45.
55 different, yeah, so it's a lot of ink. Is there anything on there that stands out to anybody that they're not comfortable with as
No.
No.
entertain a motion to approve the annual renewal of licenses?
Move the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the annual renewal of licenses for Class 1 and Class 2 common victualers license, automatic amusement devices, entertainment, lodging house, and valuable second-hand item license for calendar year 2018. The list of said licenses to be made part hereof.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We'll pass those around after the meeting and we'll sign them all.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right. There are no minutes
Right.
prepared, but we'll have those at a future meeting. Might be able to do 7A in 5 minutes.
Yeah? All right. We have item 7A is an update or bragging rights, or what do we call this exactly?
Bragging right, it's something very new that the town of Littleton was invited to participate in Governor Baker's announcement of a new housing choice initiative that was at a ceremony in Boston last Monday. And I will say, I can go through some of the information here, that the town of Littleton would categorically be eligible to be designated under the program because we've already achieved what a community would set out to achieve with the program. It would offer us additional money for capital projects. We would, and I can just run through these quickly, just by way of, you can see what happened, that we did have a ceremony in Boston where the official press release included mention of Littleton's activities. Littleton has a strong housing market. I got to say in front of the governor, the total housing stock has increased by over 10% since 2010, that our subsidized housing inventory of 12.9% surpasses our goal under Chapter 40B, and we're committed to being above that goal by being proactive. And with the leadership of the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board, our town meeting voters recently approved a package of housing strategies that are contained in the town's updated master plan, including what the governor's office is now calling best practices under their new program. So it's the governor's office was aware of all that we've done, and it was a chance for us to make mention of that. The Housing Choice Program has 2 categories to qualify a community. And Category 1 is called high production, and that is if a community has produced greater than 10% increase in housing stock over the last 5 years, then you automatically qualify, and Littleton automatically qualifies. The other category is if you are 3% housing or more, then you also have to adopt, from a list of 9 housing best practices, you have to adopt 4 of those practices. We've already adopted 6 of those 9. And designation as housing choice community brings with it priority scoring for various competitive state grants. It would give us access to a capital grant program specifically for housing choice communities. We would have access to technical assistance and specific grant opportunities. I have to say that the grant program is still being worked out. It has not been announced. The reason that Littleton qualifies is the increase in housing in recent years. No surprise, almost 400 additional housing units since 2010. Half of those were from one address, 15 Great Road. The rest came, and that's why you have 144 multifamily apartments there. We also had single-family apartments. There were, which included the balance of 15 Great Road, plus a number of subdivisions. And all told, that produces a increase of 10.8%. That's according to a study that the Metropolitan Area Planning Council put out just a month or two ago, which compared school enrollment with housing permits. And I mentioned that at the meeting on, the budget meeting on Saturday, where in fact what you see in Littleton is fairly commonplace, where the increase in housing units produces a lesser increase in school enrollment. So in Littleton's case, we've had 10.8% increase in housing units, but it's like a 3.9% increase in school enrollment over the same period of time. And that's been fairly typical statewide. The list of housing best practices, these are the 9 that are in the Housing Choice Program, and we've adopted 6 already. That we have a affordable housing trust fund, and we have community preservation funds for housing. We have achieved our 10% goal under Chapter 40B. We've adopted cluster development. We have accessory apartments by right. We have inclusionary zoning, and we have a certified housing production plan. So even if we were not automatically eligible under the first category, we have also already achieved most of the best practices of the governor's office. So this is an opportunity for the town to get to pursue the funding that you can get for what we've already done in Littleton, of achieving the housing production goal that the governor is looking to achieve statewide. And the step 1 is to obtain designation as a housing choice community. That's what's being proposed tonight, is to authorize an application for that. A later step will be to then apply for funds for under the capital program. And it looks like we may be able to apply for a fund, say, to go towards engineering for the smart sewer. That's my hope. From what I understand of the program, it might be something that we could, that would be an eligible expense, and it would be very competitive. So we'll have more details about the housing program in the future, but from what we know right now is we are eligible for it, and it's an opportunity for us to perhaps be the first community in the Commonwealth to apply for designation. And I would so recommend.
This is, a lot of people have put a lot of work into this, and I think it's awesome that we're being recognized for the hard work that we've done, and the time and the effort and the hours that we put into it. And then we brought it to town meeting, and the residents approved it, so everybody's
Yeah.
kind of.
I shared the story. I had prepared remarks that I used, but the speaker, there were only 2 speakers from municipal governments. There was Mayor Somerville and me. And and it was a room full of municipal officials, so it was really an honor to get to represent. But Mayor Curtatone was doing much better with his anecdotes and the rest of it, so I felt obliged to put one in. And the one that I mentioned, because Ed Mullen and Maren Toohill accompanied me to the ceremony in Boston, I gave them a shout out, but I shared with the room that it was so gratifying that after spending 2 years going through our updating of the master plan process, by the time we brought the slate of housing strategies to town meeting, that we had voters, we had members, town meeting members, who did as good a job as any of us did in defending the measures that were in front of town meeting. So that if a particular amendment came up to try to change it in some way, we had voters who had been with us for the whole journey of identifying what our plan was, what our goals were, and what the strategies were to do it. And it was just so gratifying to see that, and another proud moment.
Awesome. And out of those 9 buckets, some of them, like number 7, I think, was either 40R or urban development. And the urban development we wouldn't qualify for because of the community that we are, the urban center housing
Right.
tax incremental finance. But the 40R, we have, the only place in Littleton where we would likely be able to do a 40R project down on Foster Street by the train, because that has to do with,
We could still pursue these, and you could get, technical assistance and perhaps grant funding to help,
so if we wanted to do some
if
sort
you
of
wanted
housing.
to do it, we could.
At the train station, it has to be within a certain proximity
Right.
of a mass transit, whether it's busing or
Right.
trains or that kind of thing. So, and we have had we've entertained some conversations with developers relative to the 40R. Just the numbers didn't look like they worked for Littleton, so we I won't say we poo-pooed them, but we did not show a huge appetite for them. So we've had some conversations around just about everything on that list, and we've executed on 6 of the 9. So hats off to everybody, and hats off to the voters as well. So thank you very much. Thank you for Keith going in.
Thank you.
And for Mr. Mullen and Ms. Twill. All right. I believe the time has come.
Looking for a motion, though, on
We do need a motion on that.
7A.
Yeah, sorry, 7A.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize submission of the town of Littleton's application to the Baker Polito administration for designation as a, quote, housing choice, end quote, community.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Unanimous.
Great.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
All right, so item 6 on our agenda is the Cricket Lane parcel follow-up discussion. It's relative to whether we exercise or assign the town's right of first refusal under Mass General Law, Chapter 61A, Section 14, to acquire from George Jones and Mary Beth Misrobian 11 acres abutting 100 Spectacle Pond Road, also known as the Cricket Lane property on the assessor's map. It's map R23-4-A. The bona fide offer that kind of kicked our right of first refusal into place is for $1 million. So I will start with my colleagues. If anybody has anything to add, I apologize, I was not at the last meeting. I was watching streaming from Detroit. And
There are some updates that I did put in the PowerPoint just to share with folks tonight, that the board's vote 2 weeks ago was your intent to exercise and/or assign the right of first refusal. And I wanted to provide the update that, as far as I can see, the option of assigning is no longer an option. Both the Littleton Conservation Trust and the Sudbury Valley trustees have declined to accept assignment. We have a letter from Sudbury Valley trustees indicating that they do not have the resources to proceed, and within the time frame, again, we're dealing with $1 million by March 1st. Similarly, received an email from Don McIver. Is Don here? I know Rick is here, Rick Finley's here, and I'd heard from both Don and Rick that the LCT did not have the resources to be able to accept the assignment of the right of first refusal. So that really, I think, leaves takes that option off the table. I would mention that, and I put it up here, Don, the second sentence up there is from Don McIver, that he did not know of any qualified conservation 501c3 that has the capacity to or is in a position currently to receive the assignment of the right of first refusal. And I thought that was important information to have up here as well. Not only the 2 that we deal with, but there wouldn't appear to be any other takers. That would leave, so since if we don't have the assignment, to a nonprofit conservation organization, then that would seem to, if, in order to exercise the right of first refusal, that would seem to leave the only other option of convening a special town meeting to be held prior to March 1st, to have the town acquire the property for the amount of $1 million. We had discussed 2 weeks ago that if there were to be a town meeting article, that it could be written in such a way that might include multiple purposes, if that's the board's pleasure, so that the article as posted preserved options for town meeting voters to have, but that the motion that is made and voted on by town meeting would need to identify basically, one purpose. It would have to identify whatever the purpose is. The town boards that we've heard from, Agricultural Commission and Conservation Commission, had both recommended agricultural use as the purpose. Park and Recreation Commission had recommended active recreation. And in the remarks that were read into the record 2 weeks ago, we heard that the Sustainability Committee had the idea of a solar energy project as another use. And so that's sort of where we're. The funding strategy that Bonnie had shared with us before, that there was a maximum of $150,000 that would be available from community preservation funds. The rest would need to come from general funds, and it need not involve a debt exclusion. But the money that is used would be money that would, say, the money that is taken from the capital funding source would be money that therefore would not be available for other capital projects, whatever those might be.
Okay. Keith, did I understand you when you said when it goes to town meeting, we have to identify what the use is, or can we just purchase the property?
Well, you could purchase the property. The danger is that if you're going to use any part of community preservation funds, then you have to invoke
Which bucket?
the magic words of, which bucket, right? So and we've identified, so if it were open space, and you'd need to say that. If it were active recreation, you'd need to say that, if you're going to use community preservation funds.
We wouldn't be able to kick the can down the road a little bit and say one of these 3 purposes, even within that article?
Well, you would if you weren't using community preservation funds. I think
If we were taking $1 million out of,
No, I understand.
instead of the 50. So you're
Well, for example, trying to think what we did on Cooper Farm. We went in with multiple uses, but we went out with a finite list.
And there's a shot clock on using CPA funds as well. You have to enact that purpose within a certain period of time, is that correct? So
No,
suppose we designate it for active
No,
recreation.
it requires
How long would we
Yeah,
need?
it requires a recommendation from the Community Preservation Committee to use CPA funds, and I'm unaware of any time that the Community Preservation Committee has given funds for an unidentified use. And I think it would actually, you'd be required to go to town meeting. So if you're not going to use community preservation funds, and you wanted to acquire it for general municipal purposes and not say what, you can do that, but you can do it with general funds. It's, I think, more problematic if you're going to use community preservation funds.
If CPC funds were to be used, I suppose it would primarily impact active recreation. If we were to designate it as active recreation, would it have to be developed into active recreational purposes within a certain amount of time
No.
after we acquire the property?
No.
Keith, based on the vote last week, do we need to acquire the property?
It was your intent to, your vote was to the intent to exercise and/or assign.
Okay.
So I think you left open which of those you were going to do, and I think what happened is that of the option of assignment is, from a practical matter, off the table now.
Right.
So last week it was, you wanted to, your vote, the vote was to exercise and/or a sign.
Right. So is there any way to change that intention based on our vote last week? I'm just going to be honest with everybody here. I wish I had voted no last week, even though at the last minute I did vote yes. I just think there's too many competing interests involving this parcel of land. Obviously, the abutters are adamantly opposed to it being used for recreation. Personally, I think it's financially irresponsible to purchase the land if we're not going to use it for, purchase the land with capital funds, especially based on the meeting that we had last Saturday. There's so many other needs before the town right now that where that money could be used. And while I appreciate the abutters liking where they live, and it's a beautiful area, I do know that the developer who is proposed to purchase land, his intention is to build senior housing on that property. He's not going to build apartments, he's not going to build $700,000 homes, so I'm informed. But it would be senior housing. It would be a nice, attractive complex modeled after a complex called Easy Street in Air with little individual cottages, 1 and 2 bedroom cottages for seniors. So I don't know if that gives people some peace of mind, but I just know personally, I am having a hard time with the $1 million price tag, and what I'm hearing from both sides, everybody involved. I just don't think we're going to walk away with anybody being happy if we do buy the land and if we do assign it. And I just think spending $1 million for agricultural or open space purposes right now isn't what we should be spending those funds on. I would prefer if there was some way to see that purchase go through and see some senior housing on that land.
Thank you.
I'm just being
No, I
honest.
appreciate you putting yourself out there. Well, we're all being honest here. As I was watching, sitting in Detroit, between bites, while I'm sitting down with a client, I was trying to stream on LCTV. It's beautiful to have that flexibility, but I was screaming at my phone saying, don't vote, don't vote. Wait until we get more information and we find out if there's an an opportunity to assign. But there was no way for me to communicate back to you guys because it's, you have to be sitting in the chair in order to have a vote. But I was hoping and praying and screaming at my phone, hoping you guys could hear me. Because I have a lot of the same reservations. And I do, having dug into it as much as we can, I do feel as though that the plans that the developer has in mind are with keeping with that neighborhood and would be the least impactful. And I think that this developer would likely, I don't think he will, I know that he'll sit down with the neighbors and make sure that whatever he were to do would be tastefully done. And he, he wants to be a good neighbor. He wants, he lives in the town as well, and
Right.
and he's been a successful developer in other neighborhoods as well. And I think that, I don't know if there is, if you can put the toothpaste back in the tube, I don't know where we're at with that right now. I suppose there is the opportunity for us to rescind the vote, but I don't want to, you guys kind of know where Cindy and I sit on this, but certainly would welcome the input from you guys.
Mike, you want to go?
Yeah, and I come down on the other side, and the main reason that I come down on the other side is that right now, we don't have, while the developer's intent may be to do something that I think would be beneficial to the extent that we, the development that goes in there could go in a way that's very beneficial to the town, we have no mechanism of ensuring that. And it's, while the sitting in.
To some extent, because we do have boards that
Okay,
provide.
to
Some
a
of that
limited
guidance and-
degree.
Permitting is pretty limiting.
If the developer chose to go in and put in a whole bunch of large, single-family homes, there's nothing precluding him from being able to do so right now. And I'm fine with the intent, I understand that. I also think it is not just, if this was just something for the abutters, for the neighbors, I would say, you know, it's probably not worth it for the town. I see more value in maintaining that open space and the agricultural property for the town writ large. It's really not just for the neighbors. If I thought this was just for the neighbors and not for the town as a whole, I probably wouldn't be able to support it. That said, you know, my mind could be changed if I felt like there was some commitment to doing the development in a particular context. But right now, where we stand, I think I would still favor going forward with exercising our right of first refusal, and most importantly, bringing it to town meeting for the town to decide.
Mr. Knox?
A lot of things to be said. I think everyone wants to preserve land in town if they could. Chucky always mentioned me as being the senior person on the board, but I can remember when there weren't developments. I can remember when 495 wasn't there, where the point used to be a farm. The Durkee's farm was active, where buildings are up on Foster Street now, that was a farm. So we've seen change take place, and if we could save what's left, I'm all for it. What I didn't like, or I objected to, is instead of some of the letters that were written endorsing our vote, hit me in a negative way, in a certain sense, that buy the land, but only do what we want to be done and nothing else. And that's what caught me off guard. I was just completely shocked that someone would say, you know, if the town purchases land, I want it to stay exactly the way it is. And I can appreciate the neighbors, you're living right there, and and you love what you see or whatever, but to have people say, no, I don't want any active recreation, and then use the word sports complex, like we were building this enormous thing when we talk about putting athletic fields in. I'm lucky I live in a cul-de-sac and I have land behind me that's not being used, but it could be used in the future. And if it was used in the future, if someone put an athletic field in, I wouldn't object to it. I wouldn't mind having little kids running around the field making noises. You know, so I didn't understand that. And then, of course, we heard one side, but as being an elected official like we all are, we all have our phone calls, we all have our emails. And I had my share of this, you know, you're bending to not my backyard. And talking about what Cindy said too, I've had my number of people say, that $1 million can buy that fire truck. That $1 million can be used for a senior center and all those type of things. That's fine. Another thing I objected to a lot, I'm quoting the exact sentence that was written to us, talking about town growth. And it actually said, the growth in town as a whole, the growth was rapid, unfortunately, in our view, not well thought out. And I have no idea whether that was a shot right at this board that we haven't planned in 10 or 15 years, whether it was a plan, something to be said against the planning board. What I object to is all the years that we spent carefully trying to plan things out, people volunteering their time, their energy to have open space, to have that continue, and have that remark come at us like, you know, where's this coming from? I donate all my time. And like I said, I'd love to preserve all the land we can, but we always can't do it. So I took that in a very, very negative sense. I think it was uncalled for because we have some really dedicated people from Conservation Commission, the Planning Board, Board of Appeals, Board of Selectmen that worked their ass off. Took all day Saturday to work on things, and people just overlook it. We had a master plan, 2 years, worked on the master plan, all right? Part of that master plan had 4 or 5 different sessions where people could come out and give their viewpoints. We need this for agriculture. We need this for athletic fields. We need this or that. It's all done. It's out there in the public, and no one says a word until it affects them right there. So that's what had me going. One thing I do want to, it was brought up about the development. And the one thing I'm going to say is that I voted that way. I'm not changing my vote. So if that's, I'm not rescinding my vote. But I do have my concerns a lot since what happened last week. And I don't know whether the developer is actually in the audience right now. I don't know whether, I don't want to put them on the spot. I've known him about 30 years. I know his quality. I know what he's planning on building is small. One of the letters come out and said it's going to be high density. I don't know, but some of these, it's almost like scare tactics, you know? And that's what I objected to. Once again, I'd do anything to save land in town, because I've seen it all go, you know? When I was a kid, Baldwin Hill Road was an apple orchard. My house was right there, and I played out in those woods. Those are houses now. I mean, it happens. It's unfortunate, but people have the right to sell their land. In this case, we have a chance to try to preserve it. And the last thing I'll say is what Shay said before. I'm in favor of having it brought before the townspeople and let the townspeople vote. And I don't know, Roger, whether you, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know the quality that you, work you're actually doing, putting your houses in. If you want to make any comments, or you don't have to, but.
Yeah, well, I appreciate all you've done, everything that was said about the quality of what we do. But, you know, initially when I put the land under agreement with the Joneses, you know, that land would probably yield 7 to 8 lots. And then we got wind of this new zone, where you could, it was almost like spot zoning, and you could have a little bit more density per lot, but allow you to build for seniors. And I thought that would be the way to go over there. You know, I've done it in air on a conventional subdivision, but their zoning in air kind of represents what you brought forth for the new zoning for seniors. And I thought it would be a good place to try it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Knapp. Thanks, Mr. Knox. Just to reiterate the potential opportunity cost, if we were to spend $1 million on this particular parcel, what are we not able to spend that $1 million on? Not on our agenda tonight, but I do plan to include on one of our January agendas is, I know that we've taken some criticism for not being proactive and engaging with landowners prior to something like this coming before us. And Chase, I think you even criticized us for not being aware of something like this coming up. But in January, I'm going to put on the agenda the Kimball property. And I want us, as a board, to take a look at that and see, you know, that. I don't know what this $1 million would do towards that. Maybe we'll be able to buy up a similar size parcel, maybe we'll be able to buy up more, maybe less, but that might create an opportunity for us to do something in our common area where we're looking to do a lot of development, and I'd hate to have that opportunity come before us and not be able to do it because we jumped on the Cricket Lane parcel. So I don't know what course of action we could take relative. Joe, you've already expressed that you wouldn't be changing your vote. There's only 4 of us here tonight. I don't think that we really need to take any action tonight. We could put this on the agenda for the next meeting. We have a full board of 5 members just to do some more diligence on each of us, each of our parts, have conversations with more and more people. Joe, you mentioned that you get a lot of phone calls and emails and whatnot. I think there was an email. I mean, we got a lot of emails from a lot of neighbors. And we welcome that. I mean, it helps us because I mean, we're volunteers. We're going to work every day and trying to run our own households, and we volunteer our time to do this stuff, and we try to put in as much time and effort as we can. So when we get your input, we value that. We very much do, every one of us. We may see things differently, but at the end, each one of us up here is doing what we feel is best for the town and representative of our constituents. So there were some letters and petition to that end as well, where some folks had said that they would be in support of purchasing it if it were restricted to recreational. There were some folks that have written to us saying that basically what I just said, the $1 million could be spent somewhere else. Where are we gonna? Why are we spending money like this? And we have spent a lot of money. Keith, what was last year alone the last piece we purchased was the
Williams property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Williams
Williams
property.
property, which was 1.245.
0.2 million.
Right.
So,
And if I may, that actually gets to my point about planning ahead, because there, you know, Joyce Williams, we spent between 40 and 50 an acre. Abutting that, a developable parcel, the DOT property, we spent 40 to 50 an acre. Here we'd be talking about spending 90 an acre. So when I say, we could have possibly done better getting out in front of this, I mean that seriously. And that price per acre is the single most important thing that gives me pause. I'm frankly right on the line. I do come down on the side that I still think we should exercise it, but that, 90 an acre now is a very different number than
And I have
the
to-
town has paid for other
That's the reason why,
developable parcels.
it's the reason why Sudbury, that high price for the purchase of the land was the main reason why Sudbury Valley trustees walked away, because it was not in their ballpark.
Right. And honestly, Chase, I don't know that if we approached these owners ahead of time, that we could have done better. I mean, they know what their land's worth,
It's speculation.
Oh, it's complete
It's
speculation.
speculative. And the other thing I want to point out is that, we have the CPA funds, we have that mechanism in place for a reason. We started doing that, I don't know how many years ago. And that was to put money aside to buy land. And when we bought the Joyce Williams property, I sat at that FinCom meeting, and the chairman at the time said, we're going to drain the swamp to purchase this land. I want you to know. It's going to jeopardize future land purchases if we go ahead and do this. And they voted to go ahead and do it, and we went before the town, and the town all voted ahead to do it, knowing full well the repercussions of that something else could come along. So now something else has come along, Cricket Lane. And if you look at the map that's in the,
GIS.
yeah, in the master plan, it's a substantially small parcel compared to some other parcels in town that might come up in the future. Like Chuck just mentioned, we might have a chance to buy a larger tract directly related to our downtown common area in the near future. And, where's that funding going to come from? So I know that we need to plan ahead. I think we can be proactive to an extent, but we have mechanisms in place, and we've been following those mechanisms, but we can't keep having these reactions. All of a sudden, this came out of nowhere. So now we're scrambling to find the money, so we're going to take money away from something else in town. I mean, we sat in a 6-hour budget meeting on Saturday. There's a lot going on in town that $1 million could be used for. And believe me, I'm all for open space. I'm all for recreation. I'm vice president of the Littleton Athletic Booster Association. But we really just, I think sometimes need to step back and think about what we're doing and what is the best decision for the whole town at this time. So that's the way I feel.
Well, I don't think we need to take any action tonight, but these people came out, and Mr. Sanders has had his hand up. I think he's starting to cramp. Mr. Sanders.
George Sanders, 672 Gravewood. It's very interesting to hear y'all speak up there about this tract of land and monies and needs that this town has. When we talk about the budget, I don't like mixing oranges with apples, so I think that when you put this budget into the picture and talk about the big rock of what you got for the highway building over there on Wickham Ave, you're saying 600,000 to tear it down. I don't think that's something that needs to be moved. I don't think it should be of the priority to move and spend 600 to take that down. As far as the land goes, if you let it go, you never get it back. So the town never gonna get that land back if they let it go and be developed. So the concept is that the town has purchased over 10 million, probably $11 million worth of land in this town. So it's been in various segments of the town, which hit and involve certain communities and so forth and so on. This town belongs to the people. and there's no question about that. And even though you take the first right of refusal, and I say take it to the town meeting, let the town people make a decision, so it gets a little bit off the individual selectman here, saying that, oh, well, I have to change this to let you know I have to change this to go along. Well, usually at the town meeting, in the past, we only had a small percentage of this town population, which is a little less than 10%, and probably somewhere in the neighborhood, we probably got 7,000 voters or whatever the case may be. My concern here tonight is that don't push the community away as though it doesn't matter. It does matter. Those people matter over there where that land at, where that farm has been.
Mr. Sanders, if I could just interject for one moment. We get that, and we're up here, and we take this very seriously, and we represent everybody that sent us a letter and all those people that didn't send us letters. And we represent the entire town, so we have to make decisions based on all of the input.
I'll agree that you have to. I certainly would like to say that if anybody been in a negative tone towards this board and any other board in this town, is for their time and labor that they give and try the betterment of this town. In my opinion, they're wrong. Because I think that the boards and the committees and so forth, those people put the effort in there because they want to be there and they're trying to do their best for the people. And this is something I think all boards are trying to do. As far as this tract of land go, yeah, it may be small, but the fact of the matter is that you talk about we could use $1 million to do this or do that. Yeah, we can use $1 million to do this or that, and oh, it's better spent here, it's better spent there. I've listened in this town about the fire station, the police station, or it's better to do this for the school. I listened to about the field over here. Always there's something better to do. But you don't get land back. And when you have an opportunity, you let people come in and put it in the 61A, and we take a beat as taxpayers because they give less tax to that property. But it's a benefit that the town get at the end, because if they go to sell it, you have the first right. So you gave something to them, and now you have an opportunity to get something back by having that first right to buy this land if they want to sell it. I think that the way the town is going about this and saying that there's other things that are more important in this town, maybe from the standpoint of an individual preference versus the town as a whole, saying, do we want to have open space in this town? It's been ate up. And if we're going to let everybody start building and coming in, nothing against the developers, because that's their business that they're in. They go to try to buy land, to build, to keep a profit going in their family or whatever, cooperation, whatever. But I think at the same token that as a town, it should be the town that gets the opportunity to say the nay or yay as to whether or not we do what Bunny say we need to do in order to get the money. It doesn't raise the taxes. And I know, Mr. Chairman, you may say I need to sit down, but I'm going to tell you, I am who I am, and I'm going to speak and tell you what I believe and what I think and what I believe that is the benefit of the people of this town. The citizens of this town have the right to make this shot and make this call.
Thank you. Mr. Sanders, I will say that when Bonnie presented the financial structure for how we could do this, she was charged with doing that by us, so that we would be able to have a snapshot into how we could potentially do it. So she exercised that. She wasn't endorsing it, saying we should do it
I know she
because, but she was saying, if we were to do it, we could potentially use $150,000 from the CPA funds, then we'd have to come up with the other $850, and we could do that within the levy limit without raising taxes. But
Understand
at
that.
what expense? What aren't we going to
Right.
be using that $850 for? So it's not a zero-sum game. Thank you. Frank.
Hi, Diana Paradise. I live on Cricket Lane, and I first of all want to thank you all for your honest feedback. We're never going to have enough money to do everything that we want, and we're always going to have to figure out how we rob Peter to pay Paul, or how we choose among our children, if you will. So, we all have a very difficult decision, and I certainly do not diminish the decisions that you all have to make with all of the input from all of the different folks who have different perspectives and how this situation affects them. I think we're all in agreement that if there's anything that we can do to preserve that land, that would be first and foremost in everybody's mind. We've heard it from CONSCOM, we've heard from AdCom, we've heard it from you all here today, but we understand that we also have to be realistic, and there are no unicorns, and there's no unlimited source of funding. I think what the residents have been struggling with a bit in trying to understand what would be the best thing for that land if our first wish of conservation wasn't feasible, is what could happen to that land. And we've been hearing a number of different things, and we really haven't had a chance to get a lot of information and facts about what the disposition of that field could be. And we've been hearing a number of different things, even up till this morning, about what is senior housing. I heard senior housing development, I heard assisted living facility, I heard a number of different things that obviously have a very significant impact on what that land is. I'm very glad to have Mr. Kennard here tonight to finally get a little bit of an understanding about what that may entail. As a resident who would be affected by what happens in that field, I would, again, if there is not an opportunity from a financial standpoint and other considerations that the town needs, we always want to preserve open land. If that's not feasible, this is a quiet residential neighborhood. Is there an opportunity to put a residential neighborhood in that area so that at least it's in keeping with the makeup of the surrounding area? And it sounds like Mr. Kennard's plan for the senior housing, if it's similar to what was put in air on Easy Street, I think it was. If you're looking at single-family residences and you're looking to truly partner with the neighbors to ensure that we have a say in how that happens. And I don't know how densely populated you're looking to make that. I think Easy Street was 13
Miss Paradise.
houses.
Just direct
I know
all your
Easy
comments.
Street was 13 houses. Again, if it's something that we can collaborate with the developer on, so that we can ensure that we do at least maintain the integrity of that neighborhood, I think that's something that the residents would be open to doing. And again, understanding, yes, we want to preserve it. We would love open space. We also understand the constraints from the financial standpoint and from the needs standpoint of the town. So, what can we do to utilize that land as best we can in a way that preserves the integrity of that field as much as we can?
Thank you. Just behind Miss Paradise.
Nora Leathergraves, 15 Cricket Lane. Two things. Just one, to Mr. Knox's point, I can understand that some of the emails that you got probably came off as negative, or I can see why they might have been read as scare tactics. Really, we shouldn't be leaning on the master plan. But I think what's missing is the reality that people in this neighborhood are scared. It's not scare tactics, they're scared. They don't know what's going in. We haven't even seen a plan. So when we talk about something like active recreation, all we see is the Gale Associates, 2 fields, 60 space parking lot, 1,200 people type. And we don't know what to call it, but a complex, because it's not just one field. But no one's talking to us about, is that the plan? Is it not? We have to piece together stuff we hear from the grapevine, and that's all we have to go with. And the same with the development. We had no idea, would that be 10 houses, 20 houses, a condo complex? You know, what is affordable housing versus senior housing? No one's talking to us. So we only have to make do with what filters through the rumor mill, and that's what we have to use to make our decision for what we're gonna have to live next to for the rest of our lives. And we just don't know what that looks like. So I think there's, from what we've been talking about amongst ourselves, I think there's broad consensus that we just want something that will not hurt the community sense of that neighborhood. And if that's a low-impact development, if that's something that we can have some sort of binding commitment will happen, I mean, like Chase said, I'm a little worried that that could happen, but that once we get into the sort of weeds of zoning and planning, we don't have any assurances that that's the way it's gonna go down. But if that's the case, then I think we'd be open to that if there was enough buffering and there was, you know, understanding that there are lots of houses around there. And even the same with recreation, if there was a way to dial back that, the Gale Associates plan, or interest in dialing back that plan, then maybe that wouldn't be the worst thing. But we have no idea what's possible and what's out of our control, and that's why I think people are responding with such volatility.
Appreciate your input.
Can I say something?
Yeah, I have some comments as well. So there's a whole bunch of people. So, Joe, go ahead, make a comment.
Just, I appreciate what you just said, and I really appreciate you telling me that you're not knowing what's going in, and I think maybe I would probably feel the same way. I was just, when I took those emails, you're right, I took it and said, you know, they want, I want to say the space, but they only want to do it the way they want to. But I can appreciate what you just said, not knowing what was actually going to go in there.
The comment I wanted to make, and I think the Parks and Recs director is probably going to make a similar point. When we did the space need, or the field need study, Gail was charged with pie in the sky, frankly, and looking at parcels of land. And when Gail came to us to present their findings, he kind of got beaten up a little bit, and very specifically relative to the Cricket Lane property. And that was back in August. And you know, we said, we have no line of sight to the Cricket Lane property. Why are we building a development on the Cricket Lane
I
property?
think you cut him off and told him to stop talking about that, we'd move on to the next slide.
I was trying to be a little more professional. Probably more accurate, though. Yeah, just, it's pretty much what happened. So, but to his credit, he did present, I mean, there was a lot of park, there probably would be 1,200 people there, and it'd probably have to be like Kimball's too. But it just wasn't appropriate for that piece of land. But that design could be picked up and moved to another parcel of land if we were to purchase something else, or if we had an opportunity, you know, at the Morgan property or somewhere in town. You know, just to, there were no limits, you know, there were unicorns in that plan. I saw you, Mr. Kennard, I just want to give Alicia Day's Director of Park and Rec.
So Alicia Day, Westchester, I'm also a resident here in Littleton as well. And I'm the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Community Education. So I do want to be very clear that I did try to reach out to the Neighborhood Association a few times, and I did not hear any contact back. So today was the first day that I actually did speak with Rob on the phone. Our offices are always open. We are a very communicative, very open department. Our offices were glad to take phone calls, glad to take emails, and I've not heard from anybody on this situation. Like I said, today was the first day I ever had anyone come to me to speak to me. So that being said, the Gale plan itself, one of the big pieces that we really did want them to pitch when they did their presentation, and unfortunately I wasn't able to be there that night, was that all of these pieces are pieces, they're phases. They're all ideas and a concept of something that could potentially be. They look at the spaces in which we have, and they looked at some of the spaces that already exist at the schools, what they would look like if we modified them, turned them into different things. And they were also charged to look at some of these spaces, like Cricket, Morgan Property, and
Russell Street.
What was it?
The Russell
Cooper,
Street.
yeah.
Oh, Cooper.
Cooper as well, just to see what it would look like to put a plan out there. So anything that's on there, like you know Chuck had said, the plan that's out there right now, it has a walking path around the outside. I think it has like a covered structure. There's 2 playing fields and a parking lot. The number, we were talking to Rob about that today, the 12,000, that's greatly blown out of proportion.
1,200,
Okay, so, or sorry,
That's what I
even
heard from you when
1,200
you were saying
is
that's the only reason
greatly
that came.
blown out of proportion, so I'm not sure where that number came from.
That came from you.
From that report, well,
At the
not me.
first-
If it
No,
came
at the
from
first
the
meeting,
report.
I got that from you.
You mentioned at the
The
you
previous
mentioned at the
town
previous
meeting.
meeting about the.
Okay, so the
trunk or
number that
treat
you're
and 12
Number of
specifically
users.
speaking about is
Users.
events, special events. And we had, so then that's taken out of context. So we had a special event this year where we had the trunk or treat event, and the police deemed it to be 1,200 people that had attended. That's where you get that number from. That has nothing to do with it being, how many people are gonna be in that field.
You had said you wanted an event space that would handle
It
events
could
like that. And this was
potentially
the parcel
use.
that you were thinking of for that. That's the reason that that number got attached.
All right, folks, if we could just direct all comments up here, I appreciate your reiterating.
I'm just
I
trying to clarify.
totally understand, but you need to raise your hand, and we can't just have people, arguing back and forth. I'll stay here till everybody is heard, but I just can't have people going back and forth like
Right.
that. Are you all set?
That's it, yeah.
Rob, hold on one second, I got a bunch of people
Sure
over
thing.
here.
Go ahead.
So, one with the cap, I'm sorry, Dave, you were next, and then
I am
Mr.
really
Kennard put his hand up, I'm just kidding. I'm trying to write them down. All right.
Jennifer Manicum, 11 Cricket Lane. So I'm a direct abutter to the field. It's literally in my backyard. And I think that while all of us neighbors, obviously we all would love for it to stay the way it is, I think we don't all agree on what the best use would be. I think I'm actually not afraid of playing field. I wouldn't love to have 1 million people in my neighborhood every weekend. I would hate that, just like everyone else, right? Volume and cars and whatever. But I'm not a fan of the development the same way that some of my neighbors are. And we're not all going to agree on what the best thing is. I'm going to look out at that. I'm going to look out at that through my back windows every single day. That's my view from my house. So my two concerns are, my greatest concern that was really driving most of what I thought would be the least invasive would be that many of us, maybe not everyone in the neighborhood, I think some people probably get town water, but many of us have private wells. I know I do. And I'm worried about how housing development is going to affect the groundwater that serves my well. I know that the town did, some evaluating of the town wells, but I don't know whether any of those impacts are different on personal wells. So that, it would be great to know more information about that. I don't know if that's readily available. And my other thought, and again, I don't know whether the town can speak to this, whether Mr. Kennard can speak to it, but the town meeting that we went to just recently, right, we all got a pretty large education on senior housing, on what it is, on what it needs to be, on what makes it successful. And it's, unless I'm remembering it incorrectly, one of the large components that was under great discussion was that any senior housing that didn't have attached to it, not these single cottage kind of single floor dwellings, but a large facility where seniors who are aging could transition from their independent status to a space that they needed more services, primarily medical, that it wouldn't, right, that wouldn't be saleable, that would be a crucial component to any senior housing development. So I just don't understand how this would be an effective.
That was one component.
Yeah.
Right.
There was 3 bylaws that were passed, and that was one component, was it would give the opportunity for a development like that to go into certain areas in town.
But I will say that the person presenting that said, really, this is what makes an effective senior housing solution, right? So I wonder, what would make this development effective senior, like instead of just checking a box, like we have senior housing, like what would make this effective? Because then it would just be standalone houses without this transition facility in place. And I thought another component of effective senior housing was the location, right? That it would be, it's best for seniors to be in a place where services are accessible.
But those are broad statements.
They are, but if we're gonna call this senior housing, if we're gonna say this space is gonna be for senior housing, and we're going to allow it to be developed more than, 7 houses. Like the allowance for senior housing is a little bit more dense, right? Probably not huge, but if we're gonna call it that, then I'm just wondering, what does that mean?
Well, the qualifiers are in the bylaw.
You
That's
know?
all I can say.
And if it's senior housing, what makes it senior housing? And why would we call this a senior housing solution when those were things that were brought up in the town meeting?
Those
that
were
said-
some of the things that were brought
Right,
up.
that these are what make an effective senior housing development.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Knapp?
Well, I'm hearing you all, but my thoughts were, I came to town, I was 20 years old. Joe knows that, and I'm now 62. It's a little difficult for everybody to stay in these big houses. And I thought that, we all have grandchildren around and whatnot. Wouldn't it be nice to just move to a little two-bedroom cottage, a garage, have your own space, keep your independence, if you want a garden, you can have it. I just thought that we could create something like that over there. Nothing crazy, no high roofs, simple, keep it simple.
Thank you. Mr. Locke?
Thank you. Dave Locke, 2 Barron Way. First, I want to say thank you all, honestly, for what you're doing for the opioid crisis. Amazing. I have been to 3 funerals for veterans in the last year that have lost their lives because of that, trying to self-medicate, doing it in ways they find off the street. It's sick. It's a sickness. It's crazy, but I thank you very much for that. About the Cricket Lane property, too much confusion. I've changed everything I'm going to say here. Too much confusion, really. From, I think Chase is saying it in before and didn't today too, try and get ahead of it. Thank you very much for clarifying what you're thinking of doing. Nora, maybe, or not to Nora, I can't approach her, but to everybody that's speaking, no, he wouldn't have come here today and actually give even a tidbit of what he's going to do if he's not willing to stand by that, because he's going to hurt his reputation in town to actually do anything else if he reneges on what he's trying to say.
Right.
So one thing, that is, maybe take some comfort in that. And Mr. Knox, I don't know if my letter even came through to you guys. I never got confirmation and whatnot, but for me, you didn't quote any of mine, but everything in my letter was exactly 100% how I feel every single day that I wake up in this town. I came to this town, the first place I went was the police station. And I said, oh, we're going over to Spectacle Pond, we're gonna look at the house on Barron Way. How many calls do you get over there? The only thing this person said to me was, I don't remember, it's a quiet and peaceful neighborhood. They don't remember how many calls, when they get calls. That's where everybody gets scared, everybody gets nervous about what's gonna happen to our little neighborhood, which is not very big, but could it get too big? Could we get pushed out of our own homes? Some of the homes are 12 feet off of the property over there, or the acreage. So they're nervous. Do I really only get 12 feet, or do I get the perception of having 150 feet, So they do get scared. The inability to ask, what is your plan, hurt the neighborhood around us already, because, I understand where the laws are the laws, we can't approach the people, but can we feel them through you? Can we say, these are our questions, maybe 5, 6 things per person, keep it limited, can you ask them? What is their plan? What is their idea? Or can you give us feedback of what you've heard? Kind of that kind of back and forth. We may not be able to go knock on his door, and he doesn't want us knocking on his door. So that's the only way. We can do it through you or through some other organization. My biggest concerns too, no matter what, is any development over there is everybody around them has wells. Those septic systems, those leach fields, those things, it does flow down. That is the aquifer. It is flowing down. Underwater ravines run downhill. It does go to our water supply. We're told it's not going to affect it. Maybe not today. Could it in 10 years? Absolutely. Could it in 6 years if a septic tank fails? If something happens, is one of these people that are abutting it that close going to die because of something they didn't know went into their well? That's huge. That's crazy. My well collapsed. I am upset because I want well water, but I don't get it. But thankfully the town gives it to me. So, I'm going to touch something else. For all of us, the fear was number one. So everybody came at you guys. Instead of really giving that personal note of, this is why I'm afraid, this is what makes me passionate about this one piece. So I love your passion about that, Mr. Knox. Inexcusable, but things get taken out of context sometimes. It's the whole problem that whenever I'm texting with my mother, It's always backwards. And I'm always thinking, why are you, like, I just ran out of the room because of it. She's like, I fell. No, you didn't fall. You sat down in the chair hard. Okay, I get it now. She's okay. So it's everything is perceived the way you take it, because you're passionate, everybody here is passionate about the land that's here. For me, I am very passionate about seniors, I am very passionate about veterans, I am very passionate about all the people in this town. I only came to this town because of the people that were here. I got waved at 50 times going on the way over to see the house the first time. Didn't know a single soul. So I start waving at every single person I see. Overseas, this is what we want. The open space and everything else. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Rob Hart, 7 Barron Way, and I'm heartened by this meeting because I think we're starting to clear up some misunderstandings from out there for a long time. And to you, Mr. Knox, I just wanted to, I believe you were quoting my letter, so if I could just clarify, because I think some of that passion may have spilled over. So my specific, the words I heard from you, I want to read from my letter. I was referencing that as young parents of 3, this was 22 years ago, we were drawn to Littleton when we moved to Westford in the late 80s. We were impressed by its open feel and good schools. Over time, the orchards disappeared. The open spaces became residential and commercial developments. The growth was rapid and, unfortunately, in our view, not well thought out. As a result, 20 years later, we came to Littleton and found excellent schools in a town that was growing but able to maintain its character. We're delighted by all the action that you and other boards have taken. So I just wanted to say, we were referencing the town next door, not this town. Thank you. So I guess that illustrates the point that because the information is flying so fast, and it's not all very accurate, because basically each item has been blown up as bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was only when I spoke to Alicia and Jim today that I got a better sense of that what they're talking about is something much less scaled down than some of the information we had before. I'm very happy that Mr. Kennard came here and began to speak to say it isn't quite, the ogre that we thought it would be. It might be something acceptable. I think there's a lot of discussion to be had. So that was the first thing, is that I think that as we sort of tone it down and start just saying, what is really possible here? And I don't want to leave the point off the table that open space matters. When we talk about Littleton, we talk about Littleton Common, and I would like to use the plural, Littleton Commons. Every neighborhood in this town needs a place where we can meet and come together and gather. And personally, I think all of us agree that nature and agriculture play a role in that. We want to preserve that, whatever part of that, hopefully all 11 acres. Whatever part we can. And I think there's some opportunity for a creative solution so we don't take 2 important values and just bang them against each other and hope one side wins or the other side wins or both sides lose, which is usually the output. And I think there's a chance here, now, to start making a difference. And the difference is let's really have a meaningful conversation about what matters to these neighbors. I'm president of Spectacle Pond Society, and our association, and we have been long guardians of the pond and the aquifer, so we want to make sure that whatever is done really passes that environmental test, those requirements for water, for the ecosystems that are impacted. So we don't want those things to be ignored. And that's the really heart of this, is that as neighbors, we felt like there's these decisions swirling around, and we really haven't had the dialogue that we want and we had. And I think we need to look at our process, and we take responsibility for some of the, the language, and some of it misunderstood, but I think it's sincere, and I hope you understand that. And but we got to get the information down and really have a view of this. The other point I would make in that letter is, as Keith pointed out, that we have these 2 different organizations, Sudbury Trust, our own conservation trust, who is not really able at this time to take on this kind of major responsibility. And that sort of underscores the point I tried to make in the letter, which says, this is the Jones Field, and there'll be another, and another, and another, and we'll continue to have these same kind of conversations. Where's the money coming from? What are we going to do about it? And my intent in the letter was to say, there is an opportunity to take this and say, let's start looking at private-public kind of things. If we have an organization like Conservation Trust or the farming group, we said, why don't we help them build their capacity? Because right now, they don't have it. And that we could, the town and an organization, I can't say which one, but one of these, could really take on not just working on this development, but all future. So we find fundraising opportunities. We find other ways to bring money into this, because this conversation continues year after year, and I think we can do better.
I appreciate it. Mr. Zeldin, I got you right.
Michael Zeldin, 11 Luann Street. I happen to be the current chairman of the Master Plan Implementation Committee, having served on the steering committee that put together the master plan. I just want to give you just a number, give you an idea of the dimension you're dealing with. The total amount of acreage, space, however you want to measure it in Littleton, 70% of Littleton is, quote, open, undeveloped space. That doesn't mean it's buildable. That doesn't mean that you would want to build on it. It's not contiguous, but 70% of this town is classified technically as open space. So it means 30% is houses, whatever. So those of you who live in and around the Cricket Lane population area, you're living in developed land. And in the master plan, this is just a matter of record of, number one, when the town residents came to the series of forums and opportunity to express their opinion, believe it or not, the Cricket Lane issue was discussed, not from the perspective of, shall we say, specific which kind of development or not development or recreation would go on it, but simply it was there because the people in town are aware of the spaces that are, quote, available and how they might be used. The other aspect I want to mention is very important is that in the master plan, the folks who basically attended the forums specifically said that the plan that was put together and vetted by the Department of Recreation should serve as a guide to what should go forward with you, to basically guide us in our use of space as it became available from private sources. And the reason that recreation was put on a higher level than other uses is because of something called a multiplier effect. That is, a recreation space, believe it or not, is far more beneficial to a town of this kind, not the mythical town of the 1940s or the 30s, when it was a true agricultural town. This is not a true agricultural town anymore. It may want to look like that, it may feel like that to a lot of people, but that's not who we are in terms of the impact that the agricultural industry has on our town. I want to be clear, it's not anti-anything, it's just simply a fact. The effect of a recreation area that is appealing to people has a significant effect on the health and the viability, not just of the children, but of the adults as well, monetarily and socially. That's been established in many, many studies around the country. So whether or not it exceeds housing for folks like me, seniors, I have no idea, no comparison has been made, but I do know that recreation facilities for everyone has a quite beneficial effect. The other thing I'd like to mention is that there was a clear notion that the town, A, should have a mechanism by which, in fact, several suggestions were made on how to accomplish this, for making plans ahead for the availability of private open land as it becomes available. It was also mentioned, be prepared for missed opportunities because of funds restriction and not planning ahead. Because the planning board, the master plan came out in the spring, and here we are, bam, suddenly presented with an opportunity. And I'm sorry, some opportunities are better than others, worse than others, whatever. That's what happens when a plan actually gets, as it were, meets with reality. So I'd just like to, I'm glad folks are starting to get the information. There's far more complicated, not shall we say, there's a lot more pieces of information that needs to be obtained. But please keep in mind that when someone says recreation, they're not talking about massive numbers of people. They're talking about being surprised at the value and impact of a very small recreation area can have on a town and a community. So I want to say the numbers are there.
Thanks, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you.
Rick.
Rick Finley, Big River Road. I just wanted to say that I think not being able to see what we're actually talking about is a real problem. And I think there's opportunities that we're not even talking about here. I talked to Frank Matheson, a local farmer, and asked him about whether 6 acres would be something that a farmer would lease in town. And he said yes, he would. And there's the possibility that you could get 2 playing fields and have 6 acres of agriculture at the same time, possibly. I can't promise it, but we haven't done any even sketches of something like that, and I think those are things we should be looking at.
Thank you.
It's quick.
Double dipping, I don't know.
I turned the chip over. Real fast. On that, Parks and Recs. All for expanding and now getting the numbers and hearing this opens my eyes and my heart about it. But this location is secluded and spaced. It is going to be very hard for safety and security on that property. Access from Spec Pond, possibly you can see through if it's a big roadway to it, but then you only see it from Cricket really because it's wide open. Maybe open-ended question. What is the police department, fire department, anybody prepared for? Are we going to have them policing it as their direct abutters? Little dangerous. But then how are we going to protect from the illegal activity that could possibly be happening because there is a draw to that? There's a possibility. I know, you're smart.
Well,
I've been to Castleman Trees early in the morning with my daughter, and I've cleaned up 40 to 50 beer cans myself and put them in the trash can. Probably not adults 21 and older over there doing it because they can do it in their house. So stuff happens. But I've cleaned it up myself.
I picked them up, sorry.
What's that? I'll take pictures of it. Just, is there something that would be in play to be able to address that? Safety, security for the neighborhoods.
Yeah, I don't discount that, and I don't mean to smirk at you, I just, goes the whole scare tactic thing, you know.
I'm not being,
Yeah.
I'm being realistic. Opioids, we're in a problem.
Totally get it. Don't think that's the highest propensity with those types of activities.
I get it.
My name is Ted Trella. I'm a Cricket Lane resident. I attended last meeting. I spoke up. I sent a letter, and hopefully it was received only in the most respectful fashion. We were asked for our opinions of what we wanted to, how we wanted to see this land turn out, and hopefully it was received in the fashion that was given. I think certainly no commands there. An issue that I haven't heard brought up, and I don't really know the actual legal part of it, that Cricket Lane is a non-town maintained road. And I don't know what the legal status for the town to, were they to put in a recreation field there that would access it via Cricket Lane and put the parking lot there. Rather scarily, I went to the, no, not scary, I went to the Agricultural Commission meeting last week. And they were overwhelmingly in support of that this should be agricultural land. It could support first-time farmers. You could support multiple crops per year. But, again, they were asking me, do you have any money to donate to this project? So, I don't know what the legal considerations are, but what the scary part was, the one gentleman, I missed his name, he said the town would have no problem acquiring the abutting land on the neighbors to put in roadway to be able to support their 60-car parking lot. That's really scary to all our neighbors, to me, to the neighborhood. And to put in whatever volume of athletic fields, even if it was just 2 athletic fields, no walking park, no splash park, no children's playground, it's a daily draw of cars into there. Often at dusk for soccer games, lacrosse games, Saturdays. That into that secluded type neighborhood, it really destroys the fabric of it. And yes, that does reek of NIMBYism, but it's there, and we were asked what we thought we'd like to have with the land. Given that, my neighbors have mixed ideas what should happen with that. I'm in support of the senior development as it's been described. Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
2 seconds, I swear to God.
I don't want you to swear, but.
Do you still want before me?
No, go ahead. You go ahead, and then I'll get Mr. Sanders.
I was just going to say that this past year, we actually lost our next door neighbors to beloved seniors because they couldn't afford the taxes in town. So I don't want anyone to think that senior housing is not an important thing for us. It's a big issue for this town, and I am not against there being senior housing on that field at all. It's just a question of who controls the scale and who controls the impact on the neighborhood. So that's it.
Mr. Sanders, I will get to you, but my.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Purdy.
So, one thing that I do want to point out is that the zoning bylaw that the town just chose to accept, associated with senior housing, should this go in accordance with that senior residential development bylaw, would require 50 or 100-foot offsets, depending on where you are. It would also require 30% of the land is set aside as open space. So these are all things that the town residents, have already sort of put in place. And I'm very much on board with the idea of, refining our understanding of what this looks like. But I also want to put people at ease there too, that, if this were to go in under the senior residential development bylaw, I think a lot of concerns would be addressed just by the bylaw.
That's what I was alluding to when, Jennifer, when you were speaking about how do we know what we're gonna get? It's kind of been written. Thank you for looking that up, appreciate it. Mr. Sanders?
George Sanders, 672 Grand Road. I just want to say, maybe Mr. Knox can tell us.
It's a long time ago.
You mentioned 90,000 per acre seemed to be a little bit high. I mean, I got an acre and a half at my property, and I'm telling you, I'm paying a half an acre is in wetland, so I know I'm paying $90,000 for that acre that I got, so I don't think that the 90,000 number is off, because land does not go down, it goes up. So I'm just wondering, do you really think that the asking of the 90 is that sort of kind of out of the ballpark, Mr. Knox?
Do you mind if I jump in?
Good.
So, we're talking about relative numbers. The numbers for this parcel,
Yeah.
based on the purchase price and the number of acres available, gives us a $90,000 price tag per acre. The land that were purchased over the last couple of years has been in the vicinity of $40,000, $45,000 per acre. So we're more than doubling. If we were to exercise our right and go ahead and purchase this land, we're overpaying. It's almost like the saying it's okay to buy a ladder truck for 2.4 instead of 1.2. Because last one we bought last year was 1.2, but this year we're gonna buy one for 2.4, because we have the opportunity to.
And when I made that statement, I was specifically referring to the DOT property that was acquired adjacent to Route 2, and it's up in Newtown. And that was a 5-acre developable parcel, right? There's gonna be a fundamentally different price between a developable and an undevelopable parcel, and certainly, I'm no qualified appraiser, but the town has paid in the range of 40 to 50 an acre for developable land in recent years.
And part of the reason why we exercised our right on that land or purchased some of that land was to avoid development. So, a lot of the planning that we either get accolades for or we get criticized for is trying to do the balance and purchase the land when we can in order to help to keep development in check.
So that's good to know if we've been in that range of paying, in the past for land.
I just have one super quick question. So just from the clarification standpoint of the thought of the senior housing development, the talk is about smaller, single-family detached houses that would go into that area? Is that what the development is?
That is
how
my
the-
understanding. I think
not-
that's what Mr. Kennard just alluded to
Okay, I
and
just
spoke to.
To clarify, so
Yeah.
detached, single-family,
1 or 2 bedroom.
1 to 2 bedroom houses. We're not talking about a facility, we're not talking about a, significant commercial type building. We're talking about single-family detached houses.
That's my understanding, and, I mean, he used those words tonight. I appreciate you directing your
Yep.
comments
So
tonight.
just wanted to make sure that,
Yeah.
we- that we understood what it was. And again, I think it just comes down to us not knowing and continuous bits of information coming through. So it's been a very helpful evening, I think, for all of us to
Good.
understand a little bit more what we're looking at. Thank you.
You bet.
Just
Ready.
following on to Diana, if this vote, if you're gonna put off this vote till January, pursuant to maybe discussing it further and, evaluating more information, the information we have tonight, or just any of these considerations, is there any way that any of that information, could be made available, for us too, so that we don't arrive at the meeting, hearing it the first time?
So,
I mean, I would say like maybe more color on the plan, more information about the groundwater, more information about a potential, just something with a little more color. If that's what you would use to make your
So,
own
I
determination.
mean,
I guess
we're
that's.
soliciting information from you guys, from
Right.
all the residents, and we are trying to educate ourselves.
Right.
I mean, I'm not, if I have a groundwater question, I'm gonna go to Chase, just because he's got more expertise in that area, when it comes to real estate and pricing and stuff like that.
Well, right, and so that's what I'm saying. I'm saying when you get those answers, if you're gonna consult sort of the people that you have, probably all of which have more expertise than any of us in the neighborhood, is there like a central place that we in the neighborhood would be able to look at whatever it is that you might uncover as you're trying to educate yourselves?
I'm certainly willing to share anything that I come across, but I would say that anything that any documents or anything that we have as part of our packet are all public record. It gets posted on the website. If anybody wants to request any of the information, the Freedom of Information Act allows for that. I'm not trying to be flip or.
No, as long as, so we don't learn about it when we come the next time we meet, so that maybe that morning, or whenever the documents get posted, if
Yeah.
it's in the form of a document, it would be great to say, okay, here's a more detailed plan. Here's a letter from Mr. Kennard, here's a letter from Alicia Day giving a little more color as to what that intention might be, so that we can refine our own opinions about what that might look like.
Yeah, I'd put something back on you all if you would. I'm willing to commit to that and share as much information as I get. If one of you will be the point person,
I'll volunteer if you want.
okay, so maybe if you could just email Mr. Bergman, give me your contact information, and then and then you can disseminate the information to the
Even
group.
just to have a point person to know
I
that
think
there's
that's-
connection is fine.
I think that's reasonable.
I thought we had gotten.
Did you just volunteer instead of me?
What? I thought we had gotten a letter from the water department.
We did get a letter from the water department.
Like a
while
month ago.
back.
With an opinion based on the town water
Right,
supply.
right, so, okay,
Go ahead.
just clarifying.
Well, I just want to address, so Well's concerns. When you go into a two-bedroom home, a conventional home designs for 110 gallons per day per bedroom. I believe it's 55 gallons per day per bedroom for a senior home. So that'll drastically drop the flows as far as getting into the home.
What are the numbers for having 5 kids? Hold on, I'll just show you my bill.
Are they girls?
Only one girl, but the boys, believe me, it was nice having them away at college. My water bill went down considerably. They're home now.
Food bill did too, right?
Food bill, yes. I'm completely out of sorts. Any other comments? Anybody else? Sure, go
A
ahead.
comment or process, maybe you're gonna get there, sounds like there may be one more meeting about this. And it also sounded like, it didn't sound like that the intent to exercise the right was going to be rescinded, that this would go to town meeting. If that's the case, do you provide guidance, here's where the board stands on this, either as a group or mixed opinion on that to the town prior to that vote?
So I think I'll take those one at a time. So I can't speak for the board. I would probably, Mr. Knox has said that he wouldn't rescind his vote. So there's 4 of us left if Mr. Glady's here. So I'd rather have all 5 of us here when we take that vote and make that decision. I feel, I wish I were able to get back from when I was on a business trip to the last meeting, because I think some of this would have been maybe addressed and we would have had different conversations, but I can't say whether or not we would rescind that vote. I would like to have that at least be part of the conversation, to potentially rescind that vote if we think that it's not in the town's best interest as a whole, because if we do exercise our right of first refusal, and we do decide to have a town meeting, there's some expense involved with that, because we have to post it, publish the warrant, and actually hold the meeting, God bless you, and actually have the meeting. There's some expense, because there has to be tellers, and so it costs money. So we have to take all those things into consideration. I think I missed one of your points or questions.
Do you provide a unified recommendation to the town if it goes there, or do you provide a,
Typically,
if your opinion's individually varied?
we typically will take a vote as a board and give our opinion, as will the planning board, and I would assume the Park and Recreation Commission would. Anybody who would have kind of line of sight to the particular warrant articles on any town meeting article, they typically give an opinion. Touched them all?
Yeah.
All right. And if you guys have any structural questions like that, I may not have the answer, but I have some pretty good resources that can get you those answers. So you guys can certainly reach out to me, and I'll try to get those questions answered for you. All right. Good. I'll give you one more shot. 3 swings.
All right, do you have, as the board's sitting there right now, I understand this section. We know where you two stand, we know where you two stand. We haven't heard a lot from Anthony tonight, but I'm not putting you on the spot, sir, but what I do want to say is, or ask is...
He doesn't get a vote.
I don't get a vote. The staff doesn't get a vote. Staff doesn't get a vote.
He's the assistant town administrator.
But
We do it.
Oh.
That's what I'm saying. So I understand that you want to have a different vote, and I understand that. But what is the point right now of waiting until that if the money is still the same issue in a few weeks? The same question. If right now we're all coming to this idea and feel good about senior housing, we're all coming to this feel good about, holy crap, we just had a whole lot of light bulbs turn on because the process went different. Do we need to wait? Are you going to come to a realization? That's one question. And then second, do we now have time to have another conservation or a trust or somebody else come in and buy the land?
Certainly.
So that extends that time.
Just based on the information that we hear from the conservation trusts, there's no other conservation trust organization that is going to come in and acquire the property.
Understood.
So I think that option is off the table.
And they will have already had to have been established. It's not like you guys could prove
You can't establish one between now and January 8th, and then, well, you're welcome to do that, but you would also need to raise $1 million by a similar deadline. So
I'm speaking more individual farmer. An individual farmer that wants to farm the land. Somebody that wants to take it, a person that just wants to buy the land. We just
It's gonna be
The law's
501c3.
pretty specific about 501c3 conservation trusts.
No, the problem is that the town itself can stand between the seller and the buyer by virtue of the statutory authority under 61A. No one else gets to stand between the seller and the buyer. Anyone else who would bust up the agreement between, you have a willing seller and a willing buyer, they have a binding contract. We're allowed to insert ourselves into that process through Chapter 61A. No outside group is able to do that. In fact, we've had discussions with other conservation trust organizations who said, hey, look, once there's an agreement, it's too late. It's too late to acquire the property. The only way to do it is through the assignment. We've already heard that that's not an option. What I thought I was hearing, at least, and I don't know if this is worth pursuing or not as a potential option, but the other thing that the Board of Selectmen has done over the years with considering Chapter 61A properties is to entertain discussions of host community agreements with the developer, with the seller and the buyer, but there it was where the outcome was for the town not to acquire the property, but rather to direct what the extent of the development might be. So if the concern of the neighbors isn't so much, all right, we're okay with, no, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but if you're okay with senior housing so long as it, is where the neighborhood would like to have it and isn't too dense or whatever, host community agreements are sort of where you get to address those issues. But it's not been something that's been on the table up till now. So that's a process thing. Right now, the only other process thing that we have identified is in order to exercise the right of first refusal, that requires a special town meeting to be held prior to March 1st. And we run out of time to do that after the next meeting on January 8th, just in terms of the mechanics of what we would have to do to call
But to
it down.
refuse doesn't take that.
To refuse to...
We can refuse tonight.
You could refuse tonight, you could refuse on January 8th or sometime during the month of January. When the board has waived the right of first refusal, sometimes that has come in the form of an agreement with, of a host community agreement with the developer as the means of the waiver. But we did that with host community agreements we've used, Durkee Farm, Cooper Farm, whatever, in return for which portions of the property were set aside when we understood what those were. That's the sort of a process thing.
So in order for us to say, all right, we're not going to exercise our right, but would like to get something in return for not exercising that right, there's been a host community agreement kind of frustrating a little bit.
And the advantage to those has simply been that the town then didn't have to spend its money to acquire the property, that we got donations of the property, a portion of the property.
Mr. Sanders, I know you have a comment, just 1 second before you do. Mr. Knox had a question, I just wanted,
If I could ask Mr. Kennard, Roger, is it possible in between now and we get it to the board, could you give us a drawing of a sample house, what it might look like, so it might ease what people are thinking of?
any visuals?
Any visuals that you could do that, this is the type of house I want to put in?
When's the next meeting?
January 8th.
January 8th, three weeks from tonight.
Cape is loaded with them.
Yeah.
They're all over the place now. Nickerson Homes has been putting them up since
Road
the
trip.
70s, I believe.
Yeah, but if you could just...
So we can take one of the senior housing buses and take a little trip? No? Sorry, Joe. I took you off your game.
Again.
Take a ride around the lake.
Yeah. But if you could do that, I think it would ease some thoughts.
All right, Mr. Sanders.
Mr. Chairman, George Sanders, 672 Great Wood. I want to piggyback off of what Mr. Berkman was saying there. Now that I have a little bit better understanding of how much money the town has been spending per acre here, I mean, he's really paying premium dollars for this acreage over there. And I can't really say that we need to spend, 2.5 times what we've been paying for the acreage here. So my thought here now is that if you don't take the first right to refusal here, maybe that can be agreement, and sort of kind of like the host agreement that Mr. Berkman was talking about, for the neighborhood to work with the developer, ensuring that the neighborhood is satisfied with whatever he's going to put in there, and at the same token, then perhaps the agreement that Mr. Berkman was speaking of here, as a host agreement, I don't know exactly what the town may want to give, the contractor to give, or the developer to give to the town for that. But I think the thing that we ought to do here now is not overpay per acre of land. I think that we need to make sure that we're not giving taxpayer money away and not being wise spenders, because that is not wise spenders if we're paying 40,000 per acre, and now we're gonna pay, you know, that kind of money for it. I don't go there, so I'll withdraw my insisting on you, first, take the first right, refusal right here. And, I think that in the long run, I think it would be better for the neighborhood to work with the developer. And the board sort of kind of, sort of kind of giving him what he needs and being satisfied, because he's gonna have to come back to the planning board and so forth with the permits and so forth. So I think this would be beneficial to the neighborhood. I hear neighbors here saying that, you know, they didn't know what was going on, and I can understand that. But now he has come forth, and now he's going to present something to the board here. I think that they probably can work out with the neighbors and the developer here, and not have the town to take the property.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders.
Gary Austin, Whitcomb Ave. If that's the case that we're worried about, we're overpaying, every time one of these properties come up, isn't the builder gonna overpay? Because he's not gonna take a loss if he paid this much money, he's doing it for profit and to help senior housing. So won't we lose a lot of properties that way? If we're taking that concept going?
We could.
Well, just as an example, years ago, Cooper property. They wanted $1 million, the town thought it was only worth $750, we let it go, and then it got sold a few years later to the Fields.
Yeah, I'm not sure you have the numbers right there.
Yeah.
Closer to 2 million.
So like, that's why I'm worried that, you know, open space is important. And if we're not buying some of this, what's gonna happen? Do we just price ourselves out of it?
It's a game we play. I mean, the 61A, Keith, if you saw you flash your hand there, so I'll probably just.
Well, 61A is probably the least satisfactory means of acquiring property, and that what the town prefers to do, and, you know, God bless her, when Joyce Williams approached us and said that she wants to negotiate with us and offer us the sale of the property, and then we did followed the procedure we do an appraisal, see what it's worth, and agree on that appraised price. That's, and, you know, choosing from a list of properties that were identified as priority for acquisition, that's the town's preferred way of acquiring property. And so I don't think it's necessarily gonna, you know, if we have a willing seller, I don't think it's gonna box us out of being a player.
I get what you're saying.
I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. We have no way of knowing.
Right.
I guess it's what it comes down to, right? And there may be some property that we paid more than that per acre, just because the value of that particular piece of property, we just think fits right into our goals and objectives, and, you know, maybe 10 years down the road, we need to build a new Shaker Lane school, and a piece of property comes up, and who knows? It's all speculation.
Yeah.
All right, I said I'd let everybody speak. Has everybody spoken? All right. Any other comments from colleagues? Mr. Ansali, do you have anything? Mr. Locke wanted to hear from you. No? Okay, no. Well, thank you all for coming. I do appreciate all the input. Alex, again, best of luck in your next step. And
You got a lot to write down now.
Before we do entertain a motion, I'd just like to wish all those that are celebrating Hanukkah, I think it's the 7th night of Hanukkah, wish you all a happy Hanukkah, and for those that celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, and hope everybody has a happy and safe New Year. We won't be meeting again until January the 8th. So, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Have a safe
Thank you.
holidays.
Mr. Chairman.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
You don't even vote. That was-
We're adjourned.
I understand that.